What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Echoes of Elsewhere, where we dive into the forgotten, the forbidden, and the fascinating. I'm your host, Courtney Autumn, and today's episode is extra special because I'm joined by one of my absolute favorite urban explorers and YouTubers, Luke, aka Luke Explores. If you're into urban exploration, chances are you've come across Luke's channel. He's built a very loyal following, not just because of the incredible places he documents, but because of his commitment to authenticity. No clickbait, no exaggeration, just pure, unfiltered exploration. And that is what truly sets him apart. One of his most legendary explorations, Ghost Town in the Sky, an abandoned amusement park high in the mountains, frozen in time. It's the kind of place urban explorers dream of, and Luke has captured it perfectly and beautifully. I am beyond excited for this conversation, especially because, believe it or not, this is his first ever podcast interview. We're about to talk about his most unforgettable explores, his philosophy on keeping things real in the Urbex community, and what's next for Luke. So grab a flashlight, watch your step, and let's step into Urbex with Luke.
Go for it.
All right. So how long have you been exploring?
So I actually was one of those COVID urbexers, honestly. I started a little before COVID. And so I've been doing it for about 5 years, I'd say now. I got into it this one night. I was with my buddy Ian, and I was at his house. And he was just like, hey, I know this person. And she was like, let me pick you guys up. And I was like, okay, well, like that's a little weird. And at that time, I was like a little skeptical about meeting random people. So I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm picked up by this random person at like midnight.
No.
And she took us to this paper mill, and there was 4 of us, and we explored it for like an hour, and I was freaking out like the whole time.
Really?
I
like you were scared to get caught?
I hated it. Like that was my first.
What?
I hated it. I know.
That's crazy.
I was scared. Like I was shivering. I was looking around. I thought we were going to get caught. I wasn't a climber at all, and we had to climb up like this 20-foot ladder too. Just to see like the top from the roof up there.
Wait, so you didn't know that you were going to go do this before you went?
No.
You were in for like the surprise of your life.
No. And to be honest with you, I don't think I would have done it if it weren't like just a random plan one night as well, which is the crazy thing because I was up there on top of the roof and I was hiding like behind the wall and I was just freaking out about it. And everyone was looking at me like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay. I just want to go home at this point. I'm done with this. And I hated it. I didn't like the possibility of a cop interaction or a law enforcement interaction. I didn't like the idea that someone could see us from down below. I didn't like the idea I could fall and hurt myself. That was all scary. I don't know if everyone has a similar story. I've heard some people that love it right off the bat, and I've heard a lot of people who hate it just like I did. It's always interesting to me to hear other people's perspectives just because everyone thinks differently about Urbex, you know, and when you first start and you start really seeing the world around you, it's very eye-opening. And just right off the bat, like it went from something I hated to something that I was like, I love this.
You're actually the first person I've talked to that wasn't right away like, this is what I'm doing now. I'm going to go explore everything. And I think a lot of the people I've talked to did have that anxiety around maybe getting caught or injured, but it was never enough to be like, I hate this. So it's really kind of shocking because you're so good at it and you just seem like you were kind of cut out for this. So it's really shocking that your first explore, you were like, I fucking hate this. I'm not doing it at all.
You see, the thing is, I was in like a mental space where I was really finding my way when I first started. So I think I was really open-minded to experiences. And that was probably one of the only reasons why I really allowed myself to do it. And I just remember vividly just how I felt more than anything else. And it sounds dramatic to hear just how much you would hate it right off the bat. I'll tell you that one of the real main reasons why I actually love exploring out is because of that potential, interaction with law enforcement or security, just the idea that you're not supposed to be there. That actually ended up fueling my passion for wanting to explore, because when I actually started exploring from then on out, to be honest with you, I wasn't exploring abandoned places at first. Like I was kind of being like that bad kid that I was sneaking into somewhat active places at first.
Ooh.
Not doing anything like bad or anything, just like walking around properties where you're not supposed to be. So I kind of got over the fear a little bit, of being caught necessarily. And I kind of accepted within myself that it's part of what this is. And then that's when I learned that like urban exploring isn't just about exploring abandoned buildings. It's about the process as a whole. Mm-hmm. And that's when everything really became eye-opening to me. And when I really started to look into what the world of exploring is. And then from there, YouTube ended up fostering one random day when I decided to pull my phone out. And I had no plans of making a video that day. So I don't know. It's just everyone has their own story, but mine is just different because I did not enjoy it at first. And like the passion for exploring was fueled from something that's kind of outside of the actual abandoned aspect, which is my life now. I couldn't imagine doing anything different than what I'm doing right now. I couldn't imagine 20, 30 years doing anything different.
Yeah. Yeah, same. It's interesting too, because it seems like you had to flip this internal switch in order to do what you're doing. Whereas most of us show up to an abandoned spot for the first time and we're like convinced straight off that experience. And you kind of had to go home and wage your own wars and be like, I don't want this to stop me. I'm not going to be scared of the fear, and I'm going to turn it into the thing I like most about it.
Well, to be honest with you, my family kind of hated it, especially my parents. They didn't like me going out late at night. And at that point, I wasn't even in college yet. I hadn't really done any of the sneaking out yet or anything. So, when I started going out super late and going to these places and, everyone around me immediately was just like, okay, like, I don't know if I love you doing that. And I can't believe looking back now what it's turned into. It's crazy to see how one or two experiences can literally change your life because you see people talk about it just like this. But until you actually experience something like that yourself, you don't really realize like what the power of like those actual experiences are. Like I was talking about with your mindset, you never know what one thing is going to do, what that one little tick is going to be in your mind. That's like, you know what? Let's try something different today. And it was just that one random, let's go. And that one yes that came out of my mouth. I can't think of another experience or another time when I would have been okay at that moment doing something like this. So right. I thank my buddy Ian for bringing me along and kind of forcing me to go do that. And I mean, it's crazy because I still explore with him and a lot of my friends today. And I always just think it's just amazing to kind of share those experiences now.
Is he the guy that always is like in your videos?
No, that's Lucas. Lucas is
Luke and Lucas. This is like the greatest duo.
I know you were saying that before this. You were watching one of my more recent videos, the Buddhist video. Mm-hmm. He was the one in that video that was scootering everywhere and falling everywhere. He's the goofball. Ian does come with me on some of my adventures, but not as many of them. He has a big boy job now, so he doesn't. He can't mess with law enforcement as much. But Lucas likes to have fun still.
Yeah, he seems like a good guy or like a fun person to have along with you.
Yeah, when I go out and I film, I'm very meticulous about who I bring with me because kind of who you bring and the vibe that the people set really determines how well the video is going to be shot. So I film a lot of videos with friends more than actual explorers just because I think that the videos, they come out better. And even though, it's always good to be with someone who has a camera in their hand and knows how to use a camera, being with people that get you and like totally understand what you're about and what you're doing, it just makes the experience 10 times better. So I'm very grateful for just the people I have around me that allowed me to do it because genuinely like I do all the work, but it's a team game, And
they're not in your way. They make your job easier.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like they don't get enough credit because like they stand there for hours and watch me film. You know what I mean?
They're probably like, when is this guy going to be done?
And it's gotten much faster, but Lucas and Ian especially, because they've been there for a lot of those videos. Shout out to you guys because you guys have just sat through a lot of boring quiet times.
Yeah, especially because you said you're meticulous. So I'm sure that you're very like strategic in how you do stuff and you want to take your time and not feel rushed and all of that.
I've been in a couple situations where people have told me that they're going to rush, and I've just decided not to film before then, just because it ruins the experience. And I'm not someone that likes to go in and necessarily set something up or do 30 takes on something before I shoot it. I really live for the natural and the raw experience. And that's why having, again, the right people around you that allow you to do that first time is so important. And I've just seen so many other creators and YouTubers that just don't really necessarily think like that. And I think that kind of does show the level of professionalism that you put into it. So I'm just about being as professional as I can and being as raw as I can.
I think that's what kind of makes you stand out, because obviously there's lots of people doing Urbex right now, especially on YouTube. It's like a whole thing. But there is an element of some of it where I watch it and it just seems a little bit too staged. And I talk about this a lot on here. And I think that that's what discourages me, because I feel like the authentic element of it is missing sometimes in the Urbex community. And I think that people are drawn to the content because it's authentic. You know, the places, they're not fake, they're real, they're abandoned. And I think to kind of fabricate it ruins it in a way. That's why I appreciate what you do, because it just seems so, hey, I'm going to take you on this journey with me. But you still have this beautiful way of capturing it. You definitely make sure you get the full scope of every place and really take people with you on the journey just as you're experiencing it, versus having this like guided staged tour or something like that. And no shade at the bigger creators, but I do feel like if you want to make money and stand out on YouTube and you're doing it now, you should do it differently. And I think you're doing that. So good job.
I appreciate that. And I feel like there's so many angles I feel like that we can get at with this. I think that the different forms of social media, the different kinds of content, like especially with the short and the long form, I think has had a big part to play in that. We live in an age now where you have to get people to stay and you have to get people to click. And unfortunately, on places like especially TikTok and Instagram and YouTube Reels, you kind of have to have that element of not even necessarily clickbait, but things have to be set up in a right way and they have to be performed in the right way. And you can just tell it's just not authentic. You know what I mean? No matter what it is, for the most part. And even if it's like a scare video when someone gets scared in an abandoned building, you know it's a setup. And I haven't posted a lot of short form content because like I just haven't really wanted to kind of dwell in that realm. I really just love the authenticity. And so I really appreciate that you can see that perspective of my channel, just because that's really what I strive for, just to be as natural as I can. And sometimes I do think I miss out on some of the clicks that some of these bigger creators get by putting out some of this fake content, you could probably call it. But at the same time, that is unfortunately what gets clicks nowadays. They're still there filming it. You know what I mean? It's like they're making content, and not everyone can do the same thing. Not everyone can do a somewhat professional style of a walkthrough. There's so many different kinds of, think about the biggest creators, think about the proper people. They are just so natural about their approach and they're very professional. And you have someone like Exploring with Josh, who's just like extremely silly. You know what I mean? It really just shows you can kind of do whatever you want. You just have to be different. And unfortunately, on apps that are not YouTube, especially nowadays, you kind of have to have that faker content. So I hate how there's like these two audiences, almost like the faker audience, that wants to see the big spots and doesn't really care about the history of it. And you have the people that make videos and actually watch full videos and are interested in the whole immersive experience.
Yeah.
I don't like to pretend like I'm a historian or a school book. I don't like to pretend like I know everything. I like to do my research, afterwards for the most part. And I like to kind of figure things out like a puzzle when I'm there and have people kind of figure it out with me, and figure out what things are. And if I'm not sure what something is, I like to ask people what it is and ask for clarification. And I've kind of built my audience around a bit of also like an older audience too. So right. I always have people that are super interested in the stuff I'm exploring and are very willing to like put the research in to figure out what it is, share it with me. And yeah. That's so cool because it allows me to learn and like actually kind of like foster this community and build this little community of people who really care. And that's the thing, is like finding people in 2025 now who care in Urbex, especially places being destroyed and people just not having respect for places nowadays. I just think, again, it goes back to having the right people around you and just having the right values when it comes to exploring.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's a good point too. Do you ever share your locations with people, especially other explorers, if they hit you up and you don't know them, or what's your protocol there?
It depends. So I don't really share locations for the most part, and I'm pretty meticulous when I'm posting content about what it is I'm posting and what it is I'm sharing and the places I'm sharing. If someone comes to me and I don't know them and they ask for a super nice place, they're not going to get that. You know what I mean? Like that's not how I really work. But if someone comes to me and they want information on a general place, I don't really mind sharing that kind of information because like public knowledge is public knowledge, and if you're going to get something from me versus someone else, it's like if you can go look it up online, that's good for you. But I don't like to give out nicer spots at all. I don't like to be a gatekeeper, but I guess being a YouTuber and a content creator now with more and more people hitting me up consistently for it, it's made me less and less eager to give spots away. Because at first I was kind of like, okay, yeah, like this is kind of a cool spot if you need somewhere to check out around here. Or, yeah, you can, go check this out. This is around you. But, after 5, 10, 15, 20 people, it gets annoying, So my protocol is I'm not cut or dry with a yes or a no. If someone comes to me and they're really polite and they give me a backstory about why and they know something about it or they just need some extra information on it, that's so okay with me. Like I'm very okay with sharing that information. But the people that will just, I don't know them and they'll just comment for a place or ask for a place or DM me for a place and just say, yo, what's this? And I just look at that. I'm just like, no. So I don't know. I feel like, unfortunately, we live in a day and age now where you kind of have to do that. It does suck because this is supposed to be a community that thrives on like interactions between each other and just positivity. And unfortunately, it looks like over the last 5 or 6 years, especially since COVID have gotten into Urbex, unfortunately, they just don't respect places like that. They're not exploring them for the same reason. And I don't consider a lot of them to be explorers. I mean, I've had to stop exploring with close friends of my own just because they don't have the same morals and they don't respect places the way that I would want them to. And it's sad to see. So because of all those reasons, I've had to gatekeep places a little bit more than I've wanted to necessarily, especially over like the last year and a half as I've been exploring cooler places. But I'm big into interactions and I'm big into positivity. So if someone comes to me and they have a real legitimate reason for why they want to explore something, I don't like to leave people hanging. But for the nicest of nicest places, the way I put it is I'll take you there. Like if you want to go exploring with me, we can go there together. Mm-hmm. But for somewhere super nice, I won't just give you the spot. I won't do that. So,
yeah.
Especially not for someone that I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's like the best protocol to have, especially because you want to make sure that if you are going to share a location, that they are going to leave it intact the exact same way you did. And that's always a huge, huge problem when you don't know somebody.
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten a location from another explorer?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot, like all the time. I mean, I would say once you start like meeting genuine people, you see that there are a lot of people that are willing to kind of throw spots at you for the sake of like, okay, this is our trust right here. And because of that, I've been able to foster a lot of relationships where I'm comfortable throwing spots and having spots thrown at me daily. So to answer your question, yes, I have dozens of spots probably daily kind of going back and forth, spots I've never heard of before. But that's just, I think, part of the natural, growth that you have talking to more people. And this is the way I put it. The hardest and most secretive spots are just local spots to people that they just don't want to talk about. So it's just to like foster those and make those relationships with people, like genuine relationships, and go exploring with them, and they'll want to show you their cool spots, and then you'll want to show your cool spots too. And that's what the cool part is. That's like when the community becomes really cool, because then you see how authentic these people can really be and how much they care. And that's when these friendships grow. And like I've been able to grow, a half dozen to probably maybe even closer to a dozen, honestly, real great relationships with people that I'm closer with than family members. Enough cannot be said about like if you're exploring with someone, doesn't matter who it is, and you just go through that experience together, like you bond through that. So I've loved that. And that's really, again, what I've tried to build my channel around, is making people feel like they are part of that, even if they're not there actually exploring with me all the time.
Yeah.
There's been a couple people, especially bigger fans off my channel, who I've taken exploring just because I wanted to give back to them a little bit, and be like, you've been there since the beginning.
Oh, really? How does that work out? Are they like fangirling over you the whole time?
I've had a couple, but I'd say for the most part, everything's been pretty tame. I would say there's a lot of people that reach out, and there's been one or two closer fans, especially, that I would say that have been very generous to me and like really also financially helped me out through like the channel a little bit as well. And those are the people that like, I'm like, okay, you are there consistently. You are donating to this channel. You are the first people there liking these videos, watching the videos, sharing them. Like, I feel obliged to give back to you. You know what I mean? And that to me is just like, I don't know. I never did something like this before and like had this kind of outreach, and to give back like that, it felt awesome. And like, from that, I was just like, I want to do this more. And unfortunately, I'm so busy, even just outside of just the, the exploring life and the YouTube life, that it makes it hard to, do everything I want to do. But I still try to give back just as much as I can, especially the people that just really care, because like, I mean, those are the people that you cannot post for a year and they will still be there right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're very loyal to you.
So, I don't know. I've just been able to meet so many like amazing people, a lot of weird people, but so many amazing people through it. And I'm trying to really see the positive light in 2025, just because there's been so much negativity just thrown around in this community so far this year, again, with spots getting destroyed and just all like places getting burned down. And it's just been kind of like a rough start. So I think that we can all use a little bit of positivity.
That is so true. And that's a part of the reason why gatekeeping is such a thing, is because inevitably we don't know everyone who can even figure out a location without you having to say it. Some people are really good at like geolocating shit, and then before you know it, your spot, is half the spot that it used to be. And it's because of one time. And that's a huge problem in the Urbex community, where we're also, we're not trying to gatekeep, but we're trying to protect and preserve. And that's the name of our game, And so the whole thing gets ruined when people with ill intentions come out and do what they do.
I think it's really funny that you bring that up, because as I've gotten a little bit bigger on YouTube now, and I've been growing this past year, that's been more and more of a thought every time I post a place, is like, I don't want people to get here. And, I mean, I'm sitting on certain spots that I filmed for months just because I don't want people to go and destroy them. It's just because of the track record that we've seen over the last couple of years. And it's sad. And I don't want to say I feel responsible for any places, because I'm pretty meticulous about making sure people can't find really nice places and not leaving clues. But still, like, as a content creator, I kind of have to be okay with the aspect a little bit of like, I'm somewhat giving this spot away to the public no matter what. And sometimes that can be a really hard pill to swallow, like I really hate it. And there's some personal places. There's one that I'm editing right now, and it's going to be, I've been telling my audience, it's going to be my best video yet. I didn't post a video this week because I wanted to work on it extra. So it's super good, but I'm not even sure if I want to post it yet, just because like, I don't want anyone to go find it. And not that I don't want anyone to necessarily explore it, or that it's the most secretive place necessarily, but just to reopen a place that's so nice for people to find, it just sits so wrong with me no matter what it is. So I don't have 1 million subscribers yet. I'm still a small channel, but as I've been growing and I've seen the influence that I've had so far, it only takes one person, at the end of the day, to ruin something. And that's the pill that, unfortunately, as a content creator, to an extent, I have to swallow a little bit and just do the best that I can. That's why we have to gatekeep spots. That's why, like, I encourage people to gatekeep spots. Unfortunately, like, go exploring, take your friends, go to nice places, and don't be afraid to share spots with people that you can trust. But like those random people that, message you, and I see people on YouTube like commenting the name of a place, and under like somewhere nice, and the creator doesn't delete it. And I'm just like, why? This has like 100,000 views and there's one comment here that, and it's like, you're not going to delete that comment. You know what I mean? And like that kind of stuff, it gets to me. So there's definitely steps that, we as creators can take to protect places. And I think that like a lot of the bigger creators have been a lot more careful over the last couple of years to not really name places, but it's inevitable. I mean, people are good at finding places, and all you need, to be honest with you, is one picture somewhere that gives away the place.
No, that's so true. Well, that, and then you can't prevent the people that might be local to the area that organically know of the place that might comment on it and be like, oh, this is down the street from me. It's such and such, and so it's like, they don't know what they're doing because they're not urban explorers, but they just feel like they want to be part of the
Yeah.
conversation. They know something cool, So it can be innocent, but it's not always, it doesn't end that way all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And so I do want to ask, do you ever show up to a spot and like get so excited because you're there, but then the excitement level starts dying down because you're like, do I want to share this with anyone? Does that ever taint your experience when you start exploring a space or filming a space?
To be honest with you, no. I'm at like this point now when I go into film somewhere, like I know if I'm going to post it or not, whether or not I'm going to sit on it for a little bit or not. There's certain reasons why you sit on places. A lot of people will sit on a place until it gets destroyed, or it gets demoed, or until it gets renovated, or they fix it, or just whatever they do with it, or it gets bought. For me, I try to kind of explore places to post that are postable in the short term now. So that's what I've really been targeting, at least for filming purposes. I would say that for every one place that I film, I'm probably exploring 3 to 4. So if by that ratio, I'm pretty careful about the places that I film because like I don't like to film somewhere and sit on it for a really long time. I've done that a couple times now, and it's just a headache each time.
But don't you have to regularly check the status of a place to make sure and wait till it's demolished, like you said? And then you don't know sometimes how long that could be sitting on a video for a year.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say so. And I always try to have about a dozen videos filmed at a time is usually what I try to do. I mean, there's some people that film hundreds at a time, but I just think it's just, I just try to go for like kind of a dozen. I mean, especially with posting once a week is what I try to do. I think it was like 50 videos I did last year. And like that was exhausting and I couldn't imagine filming hundreds of videos.
I mean, I guess you have like a lot of stuff in your vault or in your archive if there's months that go by where you can't explore or something. But no, I can imagine in the real time having to film that much stuff. And don't you ever want to just go explore and not film?
Yes. I would say though, depending on the place, if it's a really nice place that I've been looking forward to for a while, the filming process is really fun. You know what I mean? It's really immersive. And that's when I say, like, when I try to make it raw and real, I try to make it as raw and real, like in the filming process as it is in the editing process and then when posting it. Just because, again, going back to how much fake content there is and how much edited content that there is, I just really try to make people feel like they're there exploring it just like how I am. And I feel like that's like the organic content that is missing a little bit on YouTube and putting the face to it a little bit, even though, maybe putting your face for this isn't the greatest thing in the world. There's a reason why a lot of people don't.
That's true. I think it's pretty even, don't you? Like there's some people that it's like half and half hide and half don't.
Yeah, I just think there's so many people that do it now that I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but like for instance, someone getting caught somewhere, to a random person, you'd think like, okay, if you hear like that this building is like you shouldn't go in there, like people are gonna be like, oh yeah, don't go in there. But that actually just fuels the explorers to do it more. So I don't know. I just kind of think about it from that.
Is that the case with you? I watched that one video you did recently. I don't know if you did it recently. I watched it recently, and you were at this, I guess it's a mansion in New England or something like that. And there was like the pool with the vines and the hot tub and all that and the small little TVs. And the copper was like outside. First off, was he out there when you got in?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, how in the hell did you get in there?
Okay, so that one was funny because I was with my friend Hannah and we had heard that there was a police presence there and we're not surprised to see a cop. So we just kind of like honestly went up the back side of the house and just walked right in. It was like kind of ridiculously easy. Like I think the police thought,
why is this cop here?
Well, no, to be honest with you, when we looked out the front window, the police officer he was like feet up on the dashboard. He was just hanging out. He wasn't doing much patrolling. It was kind of easy just to walk in, but you have to be like really quiet. And it makes it kind of hard to film in those situations, like when they're right outside, because you have to like really whisper.
Yeah.
I think that aspect always makes it a lot more fun. But what I was going to say is, after that, I had heard of 5 or 6 other groups of explorers going, and not a single person had ran into the cop. We were like the only, it was just us. So I guess
so he wasn't there at all.
Yeah, no, and I guess it just made it better for the video. You know what I mean? There's just certain ways to do Urbex writes. And if you just do the simple things right and you just use your awareness, like, and use your senses, it's very easy to be in those situations and stay calm, and not freak out, especially if you've done it before. But again, like we were talking about earlier, I couldn't imagine my first time exploring being in a situation like that, or even the first few times. Like, it does take some work to be able to be in that situation and not freak out. But at the same time, and this kind of goes into like the whole law enforcement part of it, but getting caught is honestly part of the adventure. You know what I mean? Like that, it's happened to me multiple times. Not a lot. My success rate is pretty high, but I have been caught a couple times. It's part of it, and this goes back to what I was saying in the beginning with like mentally just being okay with the idea of that happening, and being okay with the idea of that just being a possibility, because it's honestly just a part of the game, you know? And I've had people who have gotten caught and get pissed off at me for getting caught before, and they're like, I'm never doing this again. And I'm like, well, you knew the risk. You walked in here on your own two legs.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a difference too in how you choose to respond to getting caught in the act of getting caught?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've found that just like honesty is the best policy. I mean, there's been times where like, you know, you can get away, that, you know, and that happens most of the time. But in the off chance when you just bluntly get caught like around a blind corner or something, it's just like, you're just like, all right, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm just filming it. I'm not, you know, breaking anything. And 90% of the time that goes a long way. But I'll tell you a story. So one of my videos was from a couple weeks ago on a pretty famous actually it was a little while. It was probably more like a month or two ago, on a pretty famous mental institution called Fernald State School. And that's out near Boston. And I had filmed it like 2 or 3 months ago and posted it a couple weeks after that. And it was awesome. And then I went back about a month ago, and I went with my friend, three of my friends, and we just walked right in through the front, thinking it was going to be fine. And I was so confident, like, guys, like, I did this before, like, just know it's going to be totally fine. We weren't filming or anything. And 10 seconds later, there was 2 cop cars just pulled up right behind us. And they were just like, all right, here's what's going to happen. Yeah, they were just like, here's what's going to happen. You're going to give us your real names or you're going to go to jail. And we were like, all right. And it was kind of scary. It was a little scary.
Oh man, they meant business right away. Yeah. How did they know you were there? Did they like see you roll up or something?
No, I think someone probably called because we kind of went in the front way. But I had done that before and heard of people just doing it the same way, and it was totally fine. So I don't know. I mean, I let my guard down a little bit, but like, that's what I'm saying. It's just like anything can kind of happen at, you know, any time, especially if you let your guard down a little bit. So like, even for someone who's as seasoned as an explorer as me, who goes as much as I do, anything can still happen. You can still kind of be an idiot at any time, you know? And unfortunately, that's just one example of something that recently happened to me. And I expect to get caught again in some regard. And you know, the next year or two, probably. It just happens, you know, especially when you go a lot. And then I'll tell you another story. Last summer, the summer before last, I think it was actually, I explored an abandoned iron mine, and it's on my YouTube actually, including us getting caught. And we had parked like 2 miles away from it, and there was these giant sand dunes that we had to climb up and over and go down into to get down into like the actual mine part. And we got to walk through like the mine shafts and everything. And we were in there, and then a truck started driving around, and they were reading off with a megaphone my license plate. And I was like, we were like shocked. I was like, we parked like 2 miles away, like literally like 2 miles away, walked like 30, 45. And then we eventually just walked out. We were like, okay, like they have the car. And there was this old 60-year-old guy with a bit of a belly, and he was just pointing a Glock right at us. And that one was a little scary. That wasn't
so this wasn't even a cop. This was just a random dude.
I'm telling you, it's on my YouTube, and he literally, and I put my camera away at the time, and I was filming with my phone, and he literally was like, I'll put your bodies like in the mine shaft. He's like, I know where the bodies are, and we were like, all right, yeah, we're not coming back here. We're good.
That is intense. Yeah. Like, why was he so hardcore about it?
I'm saying you just never know who you're going to run into. You never know.
Insane.
I know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like an experience like that would probably hinder someone from exploring again, honestly. You know, because people will like opt out after the cops just slapped them with a warning and they're like, you can't be doing this. And they're like, I'll never do it again.
Mhm.
But that, like, I feel like I would be like, all right, I don't think I'll just be interviewing explorers. I'm done exploring.
I really wanted to go back. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's all about the mindset that you.
Now you're so opposite nature of how you started, and that's hilarious. You're like, you know what, that guy with the Glocks there, that ups the ante. I'm going back for sure. It'll make it 10 times better.
I think it's all about the mindset, honestly. Like, I think I don't want to say like weak-minded, but like if you're, again, not willing to have that be a possibility, something crazy like that, then I don't think exploring is for you. You know what I mean? And it's just because of how frequently something like that can happen. Like, this isn't a hobby where you can expect to go outside and do this and go to 100 places and everything's going to go smoothly. It just unfortunately doesn't work like that. So, I think coming to that realization and being okay with yourself that, like, okay, getting caught is a possibility, getting arrested is a possibility. I mean, some of the biggest explorers have spent nights in jail, for going to Europe and exploring something and getting caught for something dumb. Like, it happens. It happens.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's some people that like gloat about getting caught, and I don't really get that. I don't really understand that.
Me either.
They'll post about it all the time online, and I'm just like, oh, great, yeah, awesome, you did good.
We don't want to know about your record.
yeah, you did great. But it happens, and like I said, even for as much as I go, it happens. Even the stupidest little things that you just don't expect to happen, they happen in this hobby, and that's what I think makes it great. I think that the suspense part of it, you just never know what's going to happen in Urbex. That's the amazing part. You never know if the floor underneath you is going to collapse and your foot's going to go through it. You never know if you're going to meet some crackhead going around the corner or your best friend. You never know if you're just going to walk through the front gate and then 2 minutes later the police are going to be right behind you. You don't know what's going to happen, and that's what makes it amazing, and that's what makes for great content.
Yeah, that's so true. I assume since you like the risk element of so much, you don't often get permission to explore places.
No.
Have you ever?
Yes, but none that are on the channel.
I see. Just for your own explores.
Yeah, I have. I mean, I've been invited to go like do some like private filming and stuff like that before, but like I haven't posted anything where I don't want to say I'm allowed to be there, but I'm allowed to be there,
I see.
But again, it's like it's crazy because we live in a day and age where it's just like, why would you want to post yourself technically trespassing online? But then it's like, okay, well, do you realize how many thousands of people do the same thing? And I think that's what kind of makes it hard to keep up with. And I think that's like the only possible saving grace for why, we all won't get in major legal trouble one day for this stuff. It's just because there's so many people that do it. And that's maybe the one cool thing about this many people getting into Urbex. It's just like, it does make it hard to keep track of everything. But at the same time, then places get destroyed and you have no idea how. That's arguably even worse. So again,
that's true.
This hobby is very up and down. There's a lot of different aspects. And like, that's why I'm always super interested to hear how deep into the community people are, versus like how much they just do the exploring for themselves, and content. And like, I've met some bigger creators too, who like I thought were like bigger parts of the community, and like they just do their own thing. They just film with their own people, their own friends. And like that's what's so cool is there's just so many different types of people that do this, and getting to talk to someone is just like, I mean, it's like meeting your new best friend every single day. You just exchange like you never stop talking.
Yeah, that's so true. I always say we instantly become family when we start bonding and getting to know each other. And when I've met explorers that I go explore with, it takes the element of meeting a stranger out of it in this weird way. It just literally already feels like we've known each other forever. It's a very organic point of connection for the community. And that's, like you said, that's why I love it. It's so easy to be obsessed with it. And you could just like go on forever and ever talking about all the different things that come along with Urbex. But being a part of the community is really, really cool, especially when you meet people who want to do it like you and they don't want to show up and vandalize or ruin shit for everybody and stuff like that. I want to bring up your real estate photography because I didn't know that that's what you do. How long have you been doing that?
So I've been doing real estate photography for 7 months now. I graduated school last May, and then shortly after I got the job and I got really rolling. So that's been a big proponent of my content, I guess, really over the last, year. Even before that, I did a film internship my last semester of school. So I've really been doing like a lot of camera work, just, hands-on daily for about the last year. And then you add in the exploring and the editing part. And that's really been like why my content has gotten to the point of where it's at right now, and the increase of the quality, just because I've genuinely put that much time into it. Like I genuinely go out and I take 1,500 pictures every single day. You know what I mean? And I take 2 hours worth of video every single day outside of exploring. So it's kind of cool because I go from like that and I come home and I upload everything and then I go and I do all this. So it's like a consistent, like I'm always practicing. And that's like been the cool thing for me. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of pictures. It's a lot of video. It's a lot of content. It's very mentally straining. But I think it's really like getting me to a point where I want to be, and I never envisioned myself being a year or two ago. And so I'm happy about that.
Yeah. Yeah. What does your job kind of look like on a day-to-day? Do you work for someone and they kind of give you like a map?
A lot of real estate companies, they have their own photographers, but a lot of independent realtors or companies that aren't as big, and even some of the big ones, they all hire photographers. So basically we get hired to go do shoots for the realtors. So in the morning, like a typical morning is I'll get up and so I'm also on the marketing team for my company as well. I run their social medias as well, and I'm in charge of their Instagram growth for this year. So as of lately, I've had a lot more responsibility as my job's become more full-time. So my day looks like I usually get up like 7:30, and like for the first hour or two, I'm usually doing some kind of marketing or social media work. And then I have to drive a lot. Like I'll have to drive an hour or two to go to a house. And then I'll have to spend like 3 or 4 hours shooting, content of the house, taking reels of it, taking pictures, taking cinematic videos, drones, aerial clips, everything, hundreds of pictures and everything. And then I'll go on and I'll do, 2 or 3 other houses. Sometimes they're small, beat up abandoned barns with properties. Sometimes they're abandoned houses I've shot before. And then sometimes they're really nice mansions. And then I'll have to go home and I have to sort through everything and upload it. And then by like 7 or 8 o'clock, I'm usually training focus over to YouTube for 3 to 4 hours a day.
Wow.
So that's, And then usually the night before I post videos on Friday, I'm usually up from when I'm done uploading on a Thursday night around 7 or 8 until about 4 or 5 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's like
grueling.
That's been like every week for like the last 2 months, I would say. It's a lot, but like also I'm kind of at that stage of life where I'm grinding right now a little bit, and I'm out of school, and like I'm just working hard. So it'll all pay off. Everyone has to work to get to where they want to be. And my goal is to be one of the bigger exploring YouTubers. They won't happen if I don't put those hours in. So
that's so true.
That's currently what the job is, and it's a lot, and it pays pretty well, which is nice. It does help fund my daily activities and my exploring activities, but in the long run, it's definitely not sustainable for years and years. Hopefully within the next year or two, YouTube does kind of turn more or less full time.
Yeah. Is that kind of your end goal?
I would love that. To be honest, I never ever thought that would be my passion and want to be my profession to be a YouTuber. But like, I see it a little bit differently. I see myself more as a storyteller, honestly, more than like a YouTuber. I just kind of like to just share my perspective. So I kind of look at it like I get paid for sharing my perspective. And that's what I want to do for a profession. I think that's so cool. Just getting to do what you love. And, like that is literally what I love. They say, do what you love and you never work a day in your life.
That's so true. The good thing about people like you is you have a different take on it. You can tell you're not just doing it to be a YouTuber because it wasn't what you were expecting. You can tell that you're in it for Urbex, for the experience, for it to be immersive and all of that. And I think that your perspective is really unique as you're walking through the places because you're not pointing out the same stuff that a lot of other people pay attention to. It's not the obvious. You're like really fascinated by the woodworking in places or small cabinetry or these little fine details that are very vintage almost, that a lot of people, when they're exploring these places, they just pan right over them. I love when you just stop and pay attention to the really, really fine details, because I think that that does set you apart. So I don't think you're going to have to try very hard. I think that if you stay consistently putting out content, I can't imagine organically your following just won't keep growing. And that's so hard to find in YouTube these days because everyone seems so similar. And it's just this element of not doing it differently, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you do it differently.
Thank you. I would say that when I started filming, before I took it seriously, I really took a look around to see what other people did. And the one thing I realized even 2 or 3 years ago, which people still do, is they're not looking to do something different. And we live in a day and age, like you said, where everyone kind of does the same thing. And the way to stand out is to be different, believe it or not. And you have to do something that's different to stand out. And as obvious as that sounds, I try to look at what people don't point out. And this is where I try to come in. And it's very cliche, but like finding the beauty in the decay. So just stepping back to realize this is different. You know what I mean? And like finding the different stuff in a place that looks so similar to other places, because if you go to like 10 different tuberculosis hospitals, they're going to all end up looking the same kind of at this point, Yeah. So you have to find the things that are different, because otherwise the content is just saturated and you don't even need anyone to tell you that. Like there's just plenty of that. Like there's plenty of abandoned hospitals, online that are in really good condition. But what there's not enough of is people putting their face on there and showing their personality and showing their perspective of it. And that's like, again, what I'm trying to do is just show that perspective, because that's the realism that people want to see. That's the real life, organic perspective. And I think that is just so pure. And if you look at a lot of these like channels in 2025, what they're doing now is they're trying that approach. People are trying to put their face on a little bit more. So I'm glad I hopped on it when I did, and I'm glad that I'm comfortable talking to the camera now, face to face. And sometimes I look at the stuff that I say and I'm like, why did I say that? But something that I may not like is something that someone else may want to hear or may need to hear, or it may just resonate differently with them. And that's the thing that is also awesome about YouTube, is everyone is just different. So like, just post whatever you want, kind of.
You really do a good job with just letting your personality show through on your videos. And that's why you don't seem so staged, because talking to you now on here feels very much like watching one of your videos. You don't seem like you're rehearsed, or like you know what you're going to say next, or like this is all prompted and planned out. You are just talking about what you're feeling and what you're seeing and what you're experiencing. And I guess that's part of what I miss the most in a lot of these other videos is I am here for the history and I am here for the information about the backstory and whatever, even if you made it up. Like, I don't care for clickbait. It's still entertaining. But I want to know you as the explorer too through your video. If you're going to put that much time into the walkthrough, I want to know who you are. I want to know the person I'm dealing with who's guiding me through this, and I think that you do really, really well at just being exactly who you are without the whole production of it and letting that part take over. So
thank you.
Yeah, good job.
This is also what I would say about what makes, I think, this kind of content really difficult, and people don't really realize this aspect, is what you're supposed to do to grow on social media, is you're supposed to find things that have worked, and you're supposed to kind of like recreate them in your own way. And then you're supposed to form videos in a certain way to get people to watch for a certain amount of time. But with exploring and like making content, you can't really plan the video out necessarily like before you shoot it. One thing that a lot of YouTubers do is they make their titles and their thumbnails before they go and shoot it. But like oftentimes the titles and the thumbnails are crafted off of what happens, in these videos kind of thing. And so it's different because I don't really form my videos off the basis of like, okay, what are the tricks that are working to hook people to get it to watch longer? It's like, okay, you're going to either watch my content because you like it, or you're not going to watch it. And a lot of people, they won't make like the little changes that they have to do to, little tricks to try to get people to watch longer or to click here, which are necessary. But a lot of people, I think, are just too stubborn to kind of form their content in a certain way to grow. And that's what makes this exploring content hard, is like there's no formula for it. Like what happens during the explore is what happens. Like, I'm so sorry if it takes 10 minutes to walk through a steam tunnel to get into a that's part of the journey,
Yeah.
And some people may not like to watch that, and that's why a lot of channels don't do great is because they get oversaturated is because they just put all that content in there. And so I really try to figure out like, okay, what is it people want to see? What needs to go in the video? What's necessary? And what connects us like a puzzle? So I'm consistently thinking about all of that. And I rewatch my videos like 5 or 6 times fully before I post it, just to be like, does this make sense? Does this all loop together well? And sometimes things get missed here and there, and you can't be perfect. But for the most part, I try to be as organic as I can. I try to be as real life as I can, and I try to make people feel like they're there, like with me, because I've always been someone that does care about that community. So I think, in my perspective, that's what makes me a little bit different, because I just really try to show that I care and just try to tailor it to like what my audience wants to see, rather than what I just kind of want to put on there.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's like a really delicate fine line that you have to consider constantly between what is going to get people's attention and what you want to make sure you're documenting and all of that, and how it's going to come together and get received. And do you ever feel like you're getting too close to your project, like you've edited for too long, or however, you've just been grueling at it for 5 hours, and then you're like, I'm just going to have to post it, because if I watch it one more time, I'm going to just dissect the hell out of it and never ever post it.
Yeah. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I won't ever put anything out that I don't think is perfect in my eyes. And that's a headache. So consistently battling, that thought process of like, are people going to enjoy this? Did I just do all this and no one's going to watch it? Is hard. It's hard to battle that sometimes. So people don't really understand like the mental side of content creation. And sometimes I tell my friends, it's like, I think that this stuff is almost more difficult than like the physical labor jobs. I work both of them, and like I can be tired in my body, but like to go from real estate and shooting thousands of pictures all day, with the utmost concentration and professionalism, to being just as professional up until 4 a.m. is hard. So, everyone has their own story, but from my perspective, it's definitely something that in the future I'm going to have to address, because it's not sustainable long term. And I do videos weekly right now, and I also don't know if that is sustainable like in the long term, just because of that, and like work are like that takes up so much time. Like, you know what I mean?
That's your whole life.
And that's the whole life. So, one pays the bills right now, and then the other one is a growing process. But I enjoy it. And that's when it comes back to like, you have to just love it. Like, you can't do this if you don't love doing it. And that's, I think, what sets me apart a little bit is like, I love doing it. And I think I try to show that as much as I can in my content.
Yeah, that definitely shows. Do you ever travel really, really far, since you're kind of limited on time with work and stuff? Like, how does that play into how you get to plan your explorations and stuff?
Yeah. So I went to school in Maryland. I went to Loyola, Maryland. I was a marketing major for the last 4 years, graduated in the spring. So my stomping ground for really the last 4 years, for really almost the entire time I was doing YouTube, was down there. So I was traveling consistently as far south as like the Carolinas to explore. And then I was going as far north, living in New York, as, Maine, is probably Maine, I would say, is probably the most northern, Maine or Vermont. I still haven't been up to Canada yet. That's a goal of mine. I would love to go to Canada in the near future, and possibly am looking at a European trip not too far in the future.
Ooh, have you been overseas before?
Oh, I've been overseas, but never for exploring before. I was lucky enough to grow up in a family where I was able to do that growing up. And then, when you start paying for everything on your own, when you get older, you start realizing how lucky you really were when you were growing up. So like the opportunity to go potentially do something like that is like 10 times more exciting than like, anything I could have ever thought of. So don't know if that's going to happen yet, but back to the United States side of things. Now that I'm working, it definitely makes things a little bit more difficult to travel for exploring, just because when I was in school, especially when I was a senior, I had so much time. Like I had the weekends, and I had 2 or 3 days during the week when I didn't have classes where it was just totally up to me and I could do whatever I wanted. But now that I'm working, 40 hours a week on top of,
you're just down to the weekend.
Yeah, it's pretty much down to the weekends. And I actually have this really nice thing with my boss where she really respects what I do with YouTube. So I can kind of take off the time that I want and without it being counted, but like I have to do it in advance. So if I want to take off a week, next month, for instance, I could do that if I wanted to for a trip, but I'm not one for liking to call out of, work for that stuff.
You seem very responsible, so that doesn't surprise me at all.
I just grew up in a family where you had to take responsibility for stuff, and I think that has also really made me the dedicated content creator with YouTuber, because even for missing this week's video, even though I'm working on my biggest video yet, I felt so guilty for being like, I couldn't get something out. But I was like, dude, you worked like 50 hours this week, and then you spent like 30 hours editing this other video. Like, chill out, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you got to cut yourself some slack a little bit.
Just a little bit of it. But it also makes it difficult because then it's like the weekends are the days that I'm not working, which would be perfect for me to be editing. But, when I'm going exploring for that weekend, which is pretty much every weekend for the most part, that really limits my time. So I almost never have a day where I just sit down and I just get to work for the full day.
That kind of sucks.
That's why I said, like, in the long run, it's probably not the most sustainable thing to be doing both. And that's why I'm hoping that one day I just wake up to 1 million views on a video. Wouldn't that be?
And YouTube's like, hey, buddy.
I know.
Take our money.
I mean, I don't know if you saw, I recently had my first video go somewhat viral when I explored RFK Stadium. It's up to like 200,000 views. So I'm pretty hyped about that one, because that's my awesome. First video that really did well. But I mean, other than that, I've just had real, I don't want to say slow organic growth, but I've just really gone after authenticity and that, not the short form content, not trying to just get people just to sub for seeing a video about Stillwater or something like that. I really just try to be like, here's the full 30-minute video of my explore. You can either watch it and you can like it, or you can go watch someone else's video.
Yeah.
I mean, I could only imagine doing more. I couldn't imagine like being as busy as I am and also putting hours into TikTok and Insta. Like, it's a lot. So that's why I'm hoping that one day I'm really able to kind of completely take my focus and move it just to YouTube, because it'll open up way more time for me to go exploring, and it'll open up way more time for me to just actually work on the channel with like a clear mind.
Yeah, I get that. And that is tough, but you also owe it to yourself to kind of give yourself a time of rest, if nothing else. You're going to face burnout eventually, and I assume you're kind of young, so you might be able to bounce back from that a little bit faster than the rest of us. But I think that if someone would have told me to avoid all the burnout that I faced in my 20s, I would have done it. I would do it differently. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I get what you're saying too. You're kind of in that chapter of life where you can grind hard right now and it not be that big of a thing, and that it'll be worth it in the end. So, and I believe that. I totally believe that. This is just like the start for you, so you're already making a good stride, I think.
I appreciate it.
What is your favorite kind of abandoned place? Do you have one, like house, factory side, anything? Tell me.
Okay, asylums. I'm a sucker for asylums. Doesn't matter how destroyed or how little is in them or how nice they are. Something about them every single time, and the history that happens in each of them, it just like gets me to really connect with them. And I always feel so immersed like in that experience every time I'm inside of one. I really love like industrial explorers, like power plants and stuff like that. I'm really into those too.
You like bigger places.
Yeah, but I would say like asylums, whether or not they got power or not, are just like, they just take it away. My dream is to go to Italy and explore some of the Italian asylums over there.
Ooh, yeah, that would be really
cool.
Cool.
They're gorgeous. So I used to explore a lot more of them and post them than I did now. I don't want to say I explored most of them around me, but I kind of ran through them kind of quick. So I don't know. There's just something about them each and every time that you just read the history up on them, and if you really think about it, like, and think about what it would have been like to be there, just like evil, like real life evil.
Always dark.
Yeah. And like that for me is cool, because I just feel like I can kind of connect with that, and you can really kind of feel like, I don't even want to say like a presence, but you can feel the energy like when you're inside of places like that. And totally. You believe in paranormal stuff and ghosts and everything. It's just like you can sit there and you can feel the history of what happened here. You can feel how dark and heavy it feels. I like that.
I always say the air is thicker in asylums.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Like it just feels kind of like that. And it is. They all kind of have that unfortunate dark history behind them where you don't hear about that happening these days. The circumstances are different and our resources are different. So, yeah, it's just really sad to kind of know that went on so collectively, especially across the country. It wasn't just like localized to one place. It happened everywhere. And that's just terrifying.
Yeah.
So,
And
very eye-opening.
and not too far in the past either. I mean, that, I mean, like that was, I mean, well, 40, 50 years ago they were ending it, and that's not that long ago. But like you can walk through there and just going from a basement, and the air is just heavy, and like you can't see anything, and it's dark, and you're just like, I don't want to be here. You go up one more floor, and it's just a little bit lighter, and like you go up one more floor, and then the airflow and everything, and you're just standing there like, this is amazing. It feels really real, and everything about that experience. If you guys have not been inside of an abandoned asylum before and just stood there in the dark and just listened, I highly recommend it, because it is an experience.
Totally. Have you ever had a paranormal experience of any sort?
So I have a lot of friends who are ghost hunters, and I'm always someone who said that I need to see something to believe it. So I was very skeptical, and to this day, I have not seen like something that's been like clear cut, like that's a ghost or something. I mean, I've been in the basement of, abandoned hospitals, like when I've had friends that are talking to ghosts using all their equipment, and it's like, give us a sign that you're here, and just like something will just fall off the ceiling. And at that moment, I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. I don't know, just in that environment, I guess you could call it, where it's just like, it's dead quiet, and I don't know, you just have people that are just talking to the air, and it's kind of creepy, you know what I mean? And you can be having a good time with your friends and everything, and it's a fun time, but I am not one who likes to sit and just try to talk to spirits.
You don't want to like invite the energy.
I would rather, because again, my whole thing is more of just a friendly standpoint, almost a little bit more of an understanding standpoint, a puzzle piecing standpoint. So I try to not be a threat, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like,
I see.
I feel like if you're standing there and you're asking for spirits, no matter what you believe in, you're asking for it at that point. You know what I mean? So
you're not showing up to the asylum with your Ouija board.
No,
I just cannot go chasing that kind of stuff. I'll chase a bando all day, but I will not chase a ghost. Like, there's no way.
So the one thing I don't understand is the creators that will post like 3-hour videos like of them ghost hunting, and I'm just like, who is sitting there watching that the whole time? Like,
I mean, I guess maybe other paranormal investigators might. I don't even know if they would, honestly.
It's like like I said, I have a couple of friends who are really into it, and even them, I don't see them sitting there watching these crazy long videos. So I'm just like, why are you posting it then? Like ideally you should be posting something that you would kind of want to watch.
Totally. Yeah.
So again,
it definitely had its, I guess it was its own phase for a while, like a few years ago, I feel like everybody was trying to do paranormal stuff, and now I think it's Urbex. So I want to ask if you feel like this will die down, like Urbex. Do you think it's a phase? Do you think people will kind of fall by the wayside and less creators will be out there doing it because they can't sustain it? Or what are your thoughts around that?
I think for as long as there will be genuinely abandoned buildings, I think that exploring will always exist to the level that it is, and I think it's going to grow. I think it's becoming something that more and more people are talking about and getting into, even if they've never heard of it before. I've seen a lot more younger people get into it over especially the last year or two as well, which has been not surprising, and it reminds me of like myself almost starting up. So I don't think so. I don't think that there's ever going to be a shortage of abandoned buildings, but I do think that people are going to become a lot more secretive about the places that they go to, just because I'm starting to see just the communal outrage a little bit, more and more people who have never spoken up about places getting destroyed. And I think that honestly, it's going to bring a lot more people together. So I don't know, I think it's all very far fetched, because like, who knows what's going to actually end up happening. But like, if you were to ask me, I would just see the amount of people that are getting into it now that just were never interested in it before. Like that, it hasn't been like that before. It was more of a knit community, and now things are unraveling a little bit, and people are, instead of exploring with other explorers, they're exploring with their friends. And I think that that's naturally just branching out a little bit into the wrong people seeing places, and
totally.
That's why we're seeing so much damage now.
Yeah.
Exploring will never go away, though.
And it's always been a thing, it's just that technology hasn't always been where it is. So we never had really a true way to share it the way that it's being shared now. Because can you imagine people that are 50 and 60 years old now that Urbex like 30 years ago were able to document it and we had access to that.
It would
like,
be
how
crazy.
different-
I've,
it would be
I've
so
always
insane.
thought about that. I wish I could have started exploring like in the early 2000s. It would have been awesome.
Well, back then, everything didn't have to be commercialized. So a lot of bandos sat longer than they do now, where development companies aren't straight away after some property or whatever. So I think that your luck would have been different back then too, because the times were just different.
Yeah, I think so. And just the overall, the places would have been nicer. And I don't even want to say it's probably because they were watched over. It's just because people just weren't destroying things. I think that they were now.
Totally.
I think.
Do you think that there's an element of clickbait why people go destroy? Like, are people documenting themselves doing this? I don't understand the incentive. Like, I don't know why that is someone's reflex.
To be honest, anytime I see content of someone destroying something, within the first 2 to 3 comments, I will see people commenting distasteful stuff. So I don't think that there's really a big audience for destroying things necessarily. I just think that, again, and especially with a lot of these COVID urbexers, these people who started exploring over the last couple of years but aren't actual explorers, I think that that's kind of the problem, because I mean, there wasn't this problem beforehand. And I wasn't even really exploring at that point. I just am really learning about everything now and seeing how it is. And I just can't help but think like, man, I can see why so many people are upset, because this place is extremely cool to me now. But 10 years ago, this would have been awesome. And it's just, I think that a lot of the damage has been done with like this online content, unfortunately. And that goes back to me having to think about being a part of that slightly, posting a place and being potentially part of the reason why it can be found or gets opened back up again or something. And that can be a hard pill to swallow. But again, being a content creator, I have to be okay with that a little bit. That's why I'm
walk a really fine line there.
That's why I'm pretty like, I don't know. The first thing I do is I go look up to see like if a video has been posted on the place before. And if there's a big video with the name in it, I don't mind posting it.
Of course, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And I would say I've name dropped a lot of my places because I'm able to. But then there's certain ones where like I will go through frame for frame and I will make sure that you can't reverse image it, and you just can't find it.
That's smart.
And I don't like to do that a lot. Again, I like people to like really feel like they're part of the whole experience and like they know what they're exploring and where they're exploring. But you can't now, unfortunately, especially if you have dreams to be a bigger creator. And like we were talking about it, after seeing like one of my videos get the reach that it did with getting that many views, it's really become eye-opening to me.
Moving forward, doesn't it make you think about that even more so? Because once one video has had that kind of reach, it's pretty likely that more will. And then even if that's not the case, if you even have one more, people are going to go to your channel and want to know what some of your other content looks like, so it's almost like you got to watch it.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is I'm careful about the stuff that I post in the long run. I'm not worried. There's not really any videos on my channel right now that I'm worried about people finding like in the long run and destroying, because usually I try to find somewhere that's going to be, I know it's going to be destroyed soon or it's already been destroyed. Like for instance, I posted the abandoned house video last week, and I don't know if you've seen online on the community, but that house got destroyed recently. And I found out that the house got destroyed like a week before I posted it. So I was more okay with kind of posting an outside picture or two. And so that's the kind of research that you kind of have to put into a place. But I couldn't imagine being the person that actually blows a spot up for the first time.
No, I hate that. Yeah. And I hate that for the people who probably feel that sense of responsibility, because I know, obviously I can't speak for everybody, but I know for the most part, that's definitely not their intention. I think most people would rather gatekeep it and no one ever go there again after them than it gets so blown up that it has to be demolished, or it just gets demolished on its own because of other people or whatever. That's always the worst.
Absolutely.
Have you ever explored alone?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah. No, I don't love to go alone just because you don't know who you're going to run into. And I've just heard too many stories about bad things happening with people being alone, like down to the bare safety. And just like, I don't know, I want to always live to explore another day is what I say. So I try to not go alone as much as I can. But if I need to get a video shot, or if there's a place that no one else wants to go to, I am not going to miss out on that spot just because no one's going with me. I'll go alone. So I've done some prisons by myself. I've done one or two smaller amusement parks by myself. I did a tuberculosis hospital by myself. So like I'm okay with doing it if I have to, but for safety reasons for the most part, and just because like I like having someone there with me to share the experience. For the most part, I don't usually like to go alone.
Do you have a map, I assume, obviously, with pins? How expansive is your map?
So it's not as big as you'd actually think it is, because I spend so much time on the YouTube aspect that I don't spend a ridiculous amount of time necessarily looking for spots. So I'm not one of those people that will spend hours daily collecting spot after spot after spot after spot after spot. I will usually go through like once every 2 weeks and I'll kind of, really update it. But I really tried to pin down places that I would want to actually go to, I've actually done, or like realistically makes sense. I don't like to just put every little spot on my list just because I try to be as efficient as I possibly can. So I try to really get only like the biggest, baddest, main, most secretive spots to put on the list because I don't know. I see all those people with thousands and thousands and thousands of spots and I'm just like, okay, well, that's cool. But how many of those are you going to actually go explore?
Totally. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like my map is very congested in my area because I know I can get there on a day trip if I want to go on a whim and drive an hour or something, then that's fine. But yeah, I think even outside of my state, it's pretty slim. And I'm just like, I have so much shit to do here that I still want to see. I don't need to worry about what's outside.
Yeah, no, I'm that same way. My process, honestly, too, like with the farther places, is I kind of look like I'd want to go first, and then I go hunt the places afterwards. And I've also gotten to the point where it's like I know a lot of people in a lot of different places, so like I'm also like at the point where I'm like, hey, let me give you this really nice spot, give you the nicest thing you've got down there. You know what I mean? It's like
that's smart.
It's very mutually beneficial, and that's one of the really cool things I think about actually developing relationships in Urbex is there are people that are willing to give spots, but like you also have to,
Yeah, and you have to establish that trust first too, or you just have to be somebody, I think, and let your stuff speak for itself kind of thing. Yeah, you can't just like make a random Instagram profile and be like, give me your location.
It's shocking to me the number of people that think that they can do that.
It shocks the shit out of me when people are just so loosely in the comments like, where is this at? I'm like, yes, you'll definitely be getting a response to that. I'm like, no, no one's going to tell you.
Some people, they're not willing to put any kind of research or even
they just think
think that they are entitled to a spot and they'll just get it and there's not a second thought behind it. And I don't know, even when I started off and didn't have any super nice places or anything and I was just exploring beat up rundown places, my first thought was never just to be like, let's cheat the system and just go steal places from.
I know. I feel like that's just common sense. Like, where do you think the person got the information from, especially if they found it themselves? Those probably took hours for them to find. People don't just know things off the top of their head like this. I feel like they just think we're this database and we're just like, yes, we'll feed you, give you all the coordinates. I'm like, no.
Consistently. And it's just like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's someone that has a decent following or someone that has, no followers, to get that, like, that message that they just want something, and especially to have nothing in return. It's just like,
it's so lazy.
It's a terrible feeling.
So lazy. And I don't even want to, even if I thought you were a decent explorer, but if that's how you're going to approach me, I'm just going to assume you're lazy and you're not going to go there and do the same thing I do. So I'm not going to give it to you anyway.
Yeah.
Like you just ruined it.
Yeah. I've heard like stories of just like crazy people just gypping people off and just trying to get a hand over people. And I'm just like, why can't everyone just get along and be normal? I know. Yeah. I never got that. The amount of beef that everyone has with each other for no reason at all. It's just like no one's able to really just kind of be chill, in this. There's some people. There's some people, but I've just learned that there's more weird people that do this than not. And by weird, I mean like weird, like
yeah, totally,
like
totally.
people that belong in the places that we're exploring. Kind of.
So true. They need an evaluation.
They need more evaluation.
Yes, you're right. I totally get it. Is there anyone that you look up to in the Urbex community at all?
I used to look up to the proper people, and they were like a big influence of mine. They're just their professionalism and the way that they went about their content. But as I've become a creator, I've honestly just kind of used almost myself as inspiration because, again, I've just realized that like I've kind of found where I fit in. and you have to be the biggest fan of yourself. So my days of fanboying are over, because I personally think my content is, you have to think your content's the best. I mean, my content's the best in my opinion. You know, I mean, I don't think it's like the best thing.
You're not wrong for that opinion.
But like, I think you have to think that way if you want to be successful. Like, you have to be happy with what you do, and like, you have to kind of fanboy over yourself. So for as cliche as that kind of sounds, I used to really look at other creators and been like, I kind of want to do this. But now, as I've done it myself, I've kind of looked at it as something like, okay, I've done this, but I want to keep going and build it into something different now. So I've kind of just used that as inspiration. And I would say my biggest inspiration has been my failures. When I have 2 or 3 videos that don't do well, like at all, that just pisses me off and makes me want to make another video even more. And that's the thing that makes other people want to quit. And I think that for me is another one of the big differences, just one of the little mindset tweaks that you have to have if you really want to make it, you know, to the bigger leagues on these social media platforms that are so demanding.
Yeah, totally. Do you pay attention to this whole algorithm thing? Do you schedule your content? How far do you go into? Because I know that you're in marketing too, so I'm sure that you have to have some breadth of knowledge around that for work.
Yes.
But how does that kind of ripple over into how you decide to do things for Urbex?
So I spend a ridiculous amount of time before I actually end up posting, figuring out everything to do with how the video is going to perform, whether or not it's thumbnails and titles or overall SEO or what people are currently looking for on YouTube, what's currently being searched on Google. That is all a major, major part of the process. And that's what a lot of people do not do. And that is what people don't understand is the way to grow. It just takes time. So yes, I spent a considerable amount of time when I really started getting into YouTube. When I was probably 7 or 8 videos into it, I was like, if I'm going to keep doing this, I kind of want to know what I'm doing a little bit. So I really spent a lot of time learning about YouTube's algorithm, learning about the algorithms with other social media channels, Instagram and everything, even though I haven't like really targeted those apps yet. I've really tried to just stick to YouTube, and I tried to learn it as best as I could. You know, I watched thousands of hours of videos on how to grow. I watched hundreds of different channels explain their perspectives. I would listen to what people would say, advice. I would compare and contrast, and then I would go and do my own research. So that's when I say the hard work, it doesn't just come from nothing. It does take a lot of effort, but it's worth it in my opinion.
Is there a dream location, a dream spot, like one place that you absolutely have dreamt about exploring, is on your bucket list, at the top of the bucket list? Do you have one of those?
Mine is, unfortunately, and I don't think it's very possible anymore, Six Flags New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
That was my biggest target, and I was trying to get like the funds and the time to be able to do it as they were starting to. I know it's been like wishy-washy on hold lately, but that has been like my biggest one for like the last 2 or 3 years that I've really wanted to do. Before that, I wanted to do Ghost Town in the Sky like really bad. That was like my all-time favorite experience explorer that I've ever had to this point. But second to that, after that, was Six Flags New Orleans. I was so excited about Ghost Town in the Sky because I was looking forward to it for like 2 years. So for a place to be really exciting to me, like it has to kind of like sit and brew for a little while, you know, and I kind of have to see other people do it, maybe get a little jealous other people are doing it, you know, and really work it up. And then it's just like you get there and it's like the best experience ever.
I think the best thing that I noticed about your Ghost Town in the Sky video is that you were essentially in like pajama pants exploring. And I was like, this is the best exploration outfit I have seen someone rock ever.
That was crazy.
And I know you timestamped it and you guys were out there at like 6:40 something in the morning. I know it was
crazy that we said it was a 9-hour drive from school, and I was like on a time restraint because I had to be home at a certain time at the end of the weekend. And we got there at like 2 a.m, and then we had to climb up the mountain in the dark, and that was hard. And that took like an hour, give or take, hour and a half to actually get up there. And we took a break before we went in there too. And it was just like top to bottom, got up on the top and seeing the mountains light up, the sun come over the mountain. It was, I mean, I had one chance to film it like well, you know what I mean? And I think I did a pretty decent job at it, and I was so happy with it. But just seeing the sun come up over and seeing the lights on the mountain and the dew on the mountain was just like unreal. It made everything that I had imagined just come to life. And because of that, I mean, at the time it was my best performing video until my recent one blew up. But I was just like, this one I know deserves to get it, because all around it was just like amazing. So from that, I'm also kind of able to tell, which is cool, how the videos are going to do before I post them sometimes, like based off of how much I enjoy it, the whole process.
Yeah.
Because the more that you enjoy your own content and the more you enjoy making it, the more love that gets put into it and the more people love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you definitely had Kid on Christmas vibes, like that old video. I was like, he's so geeked up right now, like he loves this.
I think I had similar pants on to these ones right here, actually.
Yes. You should just make those your brand at this point.
They should be, honestly.
Wear them to every explore.
And my brand colors are blue and black too, which is funny because I'm just all
That is so funny. But I noticed that right away. I was like, I literally don't think I've ever seen an explorer just rock full pajama pants on an adventure.
do what you got to do.
Great. Okay, so we'll wrap this up and I will let you get into the last two things I like to do with everyone, which the first thing is called the Explorers track. And that is just a song that is important to you as far as your Urbex journey is concerned, or a song you love to listen to when you start to go out and adventure or anything like that.
Okay. There's two songs. I have one song called the Adventure Song, which is this hype up song called Legend, and it has no words. It's just a whole bunch of beats. And when I go exploring with people, there's always people sleeping. You know, I'm always the driver. Everyone's always sleeping. So I always crank this song to just wake everybody up and get them in the mood. That's the first one. My second one, and this is so generic, but I'm a big Mac Miller fan, and I always listen to Blue World before I go exploring.
I love that.
So a very calm song, and then a song that rattles your ears.
It's a good mixture.
Yeah.
I love that. Are there any projects that you're looking forward to? I know you're kind of sitting on a video right now that you've been editing. Is there anything else that people need to know about your future as an explorer, and where can they find you to follow you?
So the only thing I would say is the places are going to keep getting cooler. I had someone say to me, how are you going to top 2024? And I said, I'm just going to do what I do. So the places are only going to get cooler. I'm on pretty much only posting content on YouTube. I have Instagram at Luke Explores, where I post pictures and some stuff that you don't see on YouTube. But for the most part, I have weekly videos on Luke Explores. So every week is a new project, but the video that I am working on now, which is an asylum, and it is going to be the greatest video I've put on my channel, is my next biggest project that I'm looking at. And then in the near future, like I was saying, I'm hoping that I'm going to be going to Europe. So I think that this year the outlook is really, really big. I have a couple really big explorers which have already been filmed, which I am so excited to put together. Just the experience as a whole was amazing, and because of that, I know the video will be good. And that's the exciting part, is at the end of the day, I don't even care what people end up thinking about it if I enjoy what I'm making. And that's the fun part about YouTube and being a content creator, is, again, you just get to make what you want to make. So I would say a combination of the next couple weeks videos coming up, which are really, really big immersive explorers, and then some of the potential international travel is going to be awesome. And I was thinking about expanding onto TikTok and to Instagram Reels, which I'm starting Instagram Reels. I might start TikTok up now that it's back and it looks like it's here to stay. So we'll see. There's a whole lot of stuff coming. There's a whole lot of question marks, but it's just going to be another year of growth. And I hope you guys want to follow along and see what we do with it.
Yeah, totally. Definitely follow Luke because he's amazing.
And like this, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. This is absolutely amazing. And I would highly recommend listening to every other episode that's posted, because this is incredible.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, thank you for your time. I really, really appreciate it. I know you're super duper busy, so I'm glad I was able to catch you now and before you blow up, because I have a feeling you're going to.
Oh, I'll have plenty other conversations and hopefully many more podcasts to come. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. And if you do ever come to the Carolinas again, let me know.
Oh, absolutely.
We're love to explore with you. That would be great.
We're going to get something in the works right after this. You guys are going to see her on YouTube like right after this. So
I'll be there. All right. Well, thank you again.
Thanks for having me. It's been so fun.
And that is a wrap on this incredible conversation with Luke, aka Luke Explores. I knew this would be a great episode, but honestly, hearing his thoughts on authenticity in Urbex, his experiences, and the stories behind some of his most intense adventures, this one has really exceeded my expectation. So a huge thank you to Luke for joining me on his very first podcast interview. If you haven't already, go check out his YouTube channel, Luke Explores. His work speaks for itself. And if you love real, raw urban exploration, you won't be disappointed. As always, his information will be linked in this episode. You can also follow me on Instagram at Urbex Echoes to stay up to date on the episodes, to find Luke's information and information on other explorers that have been on the podcast and that will be on the podcast, and, just to stay in the loop. That is it for this week. I will be back next week. Until then, keep exploring the allure of the abandoned, the beauty and decay, and the echoes of elsewhere.